So far, as Heineke avoids pressure and heaves it deep. Samuel, the official. Samuel makes the catch! Sees it.
All right, we're back here for another episode. It is post-free agency, and we'll kind of dig into a lot of the signings the Bills made, a lot of the moves that they have made over the coming days and weeks. There's lots to talk about. I guess we'll just kind of get right into it by talking about the guys they did re-sign, and then we'll get into the guys they signed elsewhere. So the big one, obviously, DaQuan Jones. He's back at 2 years, $16 million. It's a big deal. His cap hit is $4.5 million for the 2024 season, and this is something that we all pounded the table for when we were discussing who we want to re-sign and who we'd want to come back. So you guys happy with the move?
I am.
I am too. I think it was exactly what we were thinking it was going to be.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, they literally only have 2 defensive tackles on the roster.
Yeah, that
So you really needed him.
Yeah, that is counterproductive to having a good football team. You'd like to have some defensive tackles. Which at this time they may or may not be signing a third one. So Sport Track says they did, and NFL insider DaQuan Jones said they did. So I guess they did. So we got 3. Yeah. All right.
So we got 3 defensive tackles. We got
It's not enough.
We got some.
We have 4
inside sources.
Yeah. They definitely need more defensive tackles. They need more bodies. We'll get into that later. They need more bodies elsewhere. We'll, if you guys want to, if we have time left, we'll talk about the guys that are still out there that I like, and we can float ideas around. But yeah, DaQuan's back at a very reasonable cap hit, $4.5 million. I think we discussed on the pod, on the re-signing Let Walk pod episode, that he wouldn't get more than 2 years, and that makes a ton of sense. He gets 10.5 guaranteed at signing. It's an AAV of 8, but his cap hit for this year is 4.5, which is very, very reasonable for a player. When he was on the field, was one of the most disruptive defensive tackles in the NFL before his injury. So I like the move. I just hope he doesn't regress with age.
42.1% win rate.
Yeah, he was awesome, dude. Before that injury, him and Ed were quite easily a top 3 defensive tackle pairing in the league. So, I'm happy about it. And I'm also happy about the other defensive tackle they signed, which we'll get into later. And then the second move they kind of made, it was slow. They didn't really kind of, how Bean likes to wait out the market usually. Epenesa, 2 years, $12 million. And his cap hit this year is 3.96. And for a 25-year-old, hitting the open market who's been pretty solid throughout his career, I think that's very reasonable. I don't know what you guys think, but that's a really good price tag.
I thought he was going to get way more money. I thought he was going to get more than 2 years. I thought he was going to go somewhere and get 4 years for anywhere between 7 and 10. So I'm really surprised that he didn't have a bigger market, to be honest with you.
I really only think the reason he had a small market was because there's not a whole lot on the table for him, because the Bills have for the last 2 or 3 years, they messed up his body ratio, so he had to spend 2 years to get muscle back and then get his body composition correct, and then finally he gets on the field. It looks like he's a superstar, but we kept playing Von Miller over him for I don't know, some reason.
It just makes perfect sense for some teams to take the flyer on him, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, especially with his age.
I'm really glad we got him big. Yeah. I don't know. He had moments. He had moments where he just absolutely dominated games.
And I actually wasn't surprised. I was surprised that a team like I mentioned in that podcast episode, like a Carolina, wouldn't take a flyer on him, even if it's 1 year, throw a little bit more money at him and basically say, we have more money to work with. We're willing to take that risk on a young player. But the Bills get back a 25-year-old for 2 years at a very reasonable cap hit. And by all means, any way you look at this is a really good value for a player. Because if he does start, which I think there's a very realistic possibility him and Greg Russo are your starting edge rushers, that could be one of the best value contracts in the NFL. Just because if he's
It's
able
a hockey signing.
100%. And if he's able
Sign
to
a bridge
really,
deal.
right, and if he's able to piece it all together like what we've seen in those flashes and those spurts when he's been on the field, I think this can be an absolute home run signing, whatever way you look at it.
I agree.
I mean those two I actually did predict coming back. I just feel like they were too important to the defensive line to make you want to say, okay, how can we replace these guys? I feel like the Mitch Morse to Tre'Davious Whites of the world, these guys that are in their 30s, seem more realistic.
I mean, Trey's not in his 30s.
He's 29.
Feels like
but,
it.
yeah, that's
He's
another
29.
thing we can get to. Ultimately, what was it? It was like a Monday, right?
Black Wednesday.
When they cut Poyer, they cut Trey White, they cut Mitch Morse. I mean, those three right there. I mean, then they did cut Deontay Hardy and Saran Neal, but I mean, those two, for lesser extents, have been in and out. Party's here for a year, but
Irrelevant.
well,
Yeah.
that's not that's not nice. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, but you shouldn't say it.
Deontay Hardy was completely
He
wrong.
scored a touchdown against the Fish.
Whoa! Come on now. He is one of the big reasons we won the division.
But
Deontay Hardy ruined one of my first touchdown lays, and I'll never forgive him.
all right, you gambling degenerate. But but yeah, no, the Jordan Poyer, Mitch Morse, Trey White cuttings, very much. You guys have been talking for a while on here about getting younger and this, that, and the other. And ultimately, I felt like those three cuttings were very much we are going a different direction with this football team. And it was, instead of trying to do like what the Saints did and just try to hang on for as long as possible, it was, you know what? We got to eat some medicine. We didn't win with this core. We need to make cap space to, stay relevant in football, and we're just going to let these three players go. Are they aging? Yes.
Yeah, change the nucleus.
And, I mean, there's an open invite for Micah Hyde to come back. Obviously, Troy White's not coming back from news today. He signed with the Rams 1 year. I think it was $10 million. So good for Trey, but
Up to 10.
Up to 10. All right. And Poyer immediately signed with Miami. Have fun down there when you get burnt by Dalton Kincaid. But no, yeah, it was just it was a little sad seeing a lot of those guys go. Because they have been part. The only time they've been on the Bills is when they were good. Like, they had 1 year where they were bad, and that was about it. So they were a part of one of the more successful. I mean, if you look at Buffalo Bills history, it's one of the most successful time periods of Bills football history.
Right.
But
if you go down the road 5 years from now, and let's say the Bills win the Super Bowl within the next 5 years, which you would think they would, how do you look at these last 5 years? You know what I mean? Like, are you going to look at the next 5 years in a brighter light just because of that?
Yeah.
Or are you going to appreciate
I think if they...
the past 5?
I think
if you don't mind,
in the next...
Go
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if they do win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years, yes. If they don't, probably not. Just because right now, I feel like you're really at Josh Allen's peak right now. Yes, he can get better for sure, but these are the prime years of Josh Allen's career, and I think if you win a Super Bowl, you're gonna look at these guys as the building blocks. They really resurrect. They were the what's the right word I want to use? They revived this franchise, right? They helped do it, but they weren't the guys to get us over the hump. They really just never were. And to me, I feel like they're always going to have that blemish on their Bills' career just because they were never able to really show up in those big games. Because when you really think about it, name a game-changing play Jordan Poyer made in the playoffs. Name a game-changing play Micah Hyde made the
There's a
playoffs.
lot. Well,
I'm saying, like,
I mean, I could easily
outside
name a
of
game
Teron
playing.
Johnson,
yeah,
Like
really,
that's
in
not
those
exactly
Chiefs
the best
games,
example.
in the Chiefs games, like,
I
did
agree.
they? Come on, like, I think they were awesome players.
True,
They
I
did a
see
lot of
your
things.
point, but I don't think we could say they weren't game
I mean,
changers. I mean, I
No,
know
I'm
we
just
absolutely
saying,
blew the doors
I
off the
feel like,
Patriots, but like that interception to start the game set
I
the
think
tone.
that
oh yeah,
Oh my
interception
God.
by
that's
Micah
a good
Hyde
point.
snatched Mac Jones' career. Like,
It kind
if
of,
you
yeah.
think
Yeah.
about Mac
I mean,
Jones before that interception, Mac Jones after that interception, is two different quarterbacks. Like that
I
was
agree.
a breadbasket throw that Micah Hyde snatched out of the air and ultimately snatched the Patriots dynasty.
So I'll put it to you like this. So, so there's Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. Would you say are going to be the most memorable guys for the long run? Like 15 years from now, other than real diehard fans, no one's going to remember Mitch Morse. To be honest with you, like, you know, the average fan is not going to be like, oh
Probably
yeah,
not.
remember their center? No. Would you say that any of those three players did enough to be Wall of Fame candidates?
I feel like Poyer and Hyde did. I'm not sure about Trey
Yeah.
White.
Trey just, I don't think he
Interesting.
saw the field as much as them to really say, okay, because outside of, I don't know, 2 years, you didn't get Trey on the field. So
Yeah.
it's hard to say for Trey. If he stayed healthy, absolutely. Absolutely, he would be on that Wall of Fame. But to me, he just didn't see the field enough. And it sucks. It really sucks because Trey is, I wanted him to succeed more than both of those guys. But it's the reality of the situation. He just didn't see the field enough.
Trey White will go down
So,
like basically a better version of Aaron Williams, and that beloved in Buffalo. I think Trey White will forever be beloved here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, great character, and ultimately career was either cut short or ruined by injuries. In Aaron Williams' case, it was 2 cheap shots by Jarvis Landry, and Trey White's case, it was just untimely injuries on turf. I mean,
So, okay, this is completely off topic, but I'm on Twitter and I just seen a tweet about the Bills, and I think this is absolutely insane.
ooh, here we go.
According to ML Football, longtime Bills season ticket holder Joseph Lombardo has 8 season tickets at their current stadium. It will now cost him $400,000 at the team's new stadium to keep his seats.
It's a PSL. I'm not surprised.
That's crazy.
I'm also the side stories. I've heard stories from my grandparents when they had season tickets and they renovated the stadium. It was the same thing. It was a big price hike when they took seats out of the stadium. We were talking about last episode. For those who listened to us last episode, we were talking about Dion Dawkins' mysterious messages. What did they mean? What was going on? You know, why is Dion Dawkins cryptically tweeting? It was because he signed a 3-year, $60 million contract, and he just wanted to mess with all of us. Ben,
Yes.
Mike, your reactions to Dion Dawkins trolling us badly
I
and
love
signing
Dion for
a
that,
contract.
honestly. It seems like the most Dion Dawkins thing ever to do something like that.
Yeah,
so.
I would have been more surprised if he actually left.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't believe him at all.
I feel like he made it too obvious as well.
He was striking when the iron was hot. Like, he did a good job.
Yeah.
So
we'll go to who we signed in free agency. I want to start with the big one though. The biggest free agent signing we made. Okay. Curtis Samuel.
I can't believe you just said that.
Yeah, that made me want to gag. Curtis Samuel. 3 years, $24 million. He does have a potential out in the second year, which would make it a 2-year, $16 million contract. His cap hit for this year is only 3.4, so obviously it's prorated. A lot of the money's pushed back. It's backloaded contract. 27 years old. He's had a lot of success with Joe Brady. He's a really good separator. And he's going to come into an offense where he's going to be used in a lot of different ways. So I'm excited about the move. I'll get into my thoughts about it later. but I want you guys to go first. Just break down what you like about the signing, and I'll start with Mike.
Okay. Happy as fuck that we have Curtis Samuel. I think can't help it. I think he's going to be 80 catches, honestly, 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns all day.
Wow.
I think he's going to be amazing. I think he's literally going to be a slightly lesser version of Deebo Samuel from like 2 years ago.
Wow.
Okay, that's...
Everyone,
wow. Okay,
everyone listen
Mike's
to this
dropping the bomb.
podcast.
He is dropping
Make sure you
the
clip
bomb.
that. Clip that, and then we'll see how it goes.
That is
I
going
think
on
Deebo
TikTok.
Samuel's going to be amazing.
That is absolutely going on
I think he's
TikTok.
going to be amazing.
That is Mike's hot take of the podcast, sponsored by somebody. Please sponsor Mike's hot take. Curtis Samuel has never had a good quarterback throw to him ever in his entire career. I think maybe his best quarterback he's had throw to him is Teddy Bridgewater. Nothing against Teddy Bridgewater, perfectly acceptable quarterback before he got hurt, but this is his best quarterback. But is this going to be a Jamison Crowder situation where it's like, oh, maybe because he actually can't catch? Or I don't think it'll be that, personally. I mean, that's up for the people who listen to this podcast and react to our clips. You know, they can decide in the comments. But I think this is honestly, I think we talked about this as a perfect signing for the Bills. I think we spent like 2 months talking about this. But yeah, no, this is a great signing. The way they talk about using him sounds identical to what I think they thought they were going to get with Isaiah McKenzie. And he's a great guy that will fit into the Emmanuel Sanders role that they haven't replaced since Emmanuel Sanders left. So it's a perfect signing.
Yeah.
So can I just throw this out there? 2020 was his best season. His quarterback that season was Teddy Bridgewater, but who was his offensive coordinator?
Joseph Brady. Joseph Brady, baby.
I'm going to go Joe Brady.
Motherfucking Brady.
Watch your language.
Okay. 77 catches, 850 yards, 3 tutties. All right. 41 rushing attempts for 200 yards. Almost 5 yards a carry. Okay.
Yeah, he's going
for 2 tutties. I mean, with Josh Allen, you could. There's probably at least a 30% increase on that. I mean, I know he hasn't been insane in Washington, but Sam Howell, nah. You know,
I think Washington had
I don't know. I have such a good
Washington's
feeling.
problem was the side note here. Washington's problem was they had too many great ingredients and no chef. I think he just got lost in the wash there. I think here there might be a little more of a defined role with a good offensive coordinator.
Great metaphor.
Yeah. I wanted to say this. Curtis Samuel, I brought up a stat last week. You know, we were talking about a couple weeks ago when we were talking about our free agent targets, and I threw out the name Darnell Mooney, who ended up signing with Atlanta for a lot more money than I thought he was going to get. And I said, Darnell Mooney is, he's really good at beating man coverage. He's really good at separating. The stat shows he's good against man coverage. There was one player that ranked above him, and that I did not talk about him, and his name is Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel is legitimately one of the best separators in the NFL, and I don't think people realize it just because of how bad his quarterback's play has been. Like Trent said, and I'm going to allude to it, it's just not good. Teddy Bridgewater is the best quarterback he probably have ever played with, and that is very sad. So I think sky's the limit here. I feel like this guy, the ceiling can be capped off just because he's in an offense with Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, and Stephon Diggs. So I don't think the numbers are going to be as crazy as Mike thinks it's going to be. But I do think...
You've seen what Josh Allen did with one of the best man separators in football.
I know that, but I also think that this team is really putting a lot of their faith into Dalton Kincaid and James Cook, and they're going to be really big pieces of this passing offense. And more than ever, you're going to see a deeper passing offense. So,
I mean, according to Brandon Beane, we're taking a receiver with all 11 picks, so a lot of competition there.
And I also wanted to go back to that as well. He said at the meeting, basically what it sounded like was that, they're prioritizing versatility, strength, and character. That's always been a staple for what they look for in a receiver. and he checks those boxes. He's always been, there's never been any red flags with Curtis Samuel. He's a tough player. He can do a lot of different things, and obviously the versatility, like Mike said. He can line up in the backfield if you want him to. You can line him up outside. You can line him up inside. So it gives Joe Brady kind of free range to do whatever the fuck he wants with this team. So I'm excited. And yeah, I think it's a great signing. It's just 3 years might be a little bit much because then you're getting into his 30s, but if that's what got him here, then so be it.
He's only 27.
He is only 27, which honestly surprised me when we signed him. I thought he was 28, 29.
I mean, he's had 60-plus receptions the last 2 years for 600 yards with
pretty bad
severely
offenses.
mid-quarterback play.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think he's going to get at least 80 catches.
I don't think 80.
You have to.
I think you're going to get somewhere between 60 and 80. So, which is still really good for players of his caliber.
Right. It's better you do.
I guess we'll move on. So that's Curtis Samuel. We'll talk about this one is technically not official yet, but it's, I think, a very, very underrated signing, and it's Austin Johnson from the Chargers. 29 years old. Spotrick has it at 1 year, $3.5 million. Brandon Beane has said at the league meetings that he's going to get signed relatively soon. They just haven't really finalized it yet, but he's coming to Buffalo. All the reports say is. So it's 99.99%
NFL insider
DaQuan
Jones says he's coming to the Bills.
Correct. And Austin Johnson, when you look at the D tackles we've had behind Ed and DaQuan, Jordan Phillips, all these guys, Eli Anku, like, there's really, it's not great. But Austin Johnson comes in here. He's a very, very strong one tech. He can do a lot of things well. And I love it. I love the signing because I think he can take the pressure off some of these guys and not be a Jordan Phillips, which is what we've been used to. So I'll get your guys' takes on it, but I this might be, outside of Curtis Samuel, this might be my favorite signing.
Trent, you can go first.
Actually, I was going to let you go first here, Mike.
Okay. I like it too for the sole purpose that I don't need to watch Jordan Phillips sprint in excitement for the third season in a row and pull his hamstring.
On.
All right.
Hype man.
I think this guy is a great depth signing, though, and I think, he can bring some quality plays and quality snaps when needed. So I'm here for it.
Yeah. I mean, he played with DaQuan when DaQuan was with the Titans, so that's where the connection comes from, and played college with him. So obviously, great rapport with him. I believe they have him listed as defensive end. I believe he is a defensive tackle on the 4-3. He's the same size as Ed is. The biggest thing for me, 1 year deal. You just gotta hope he's better than Poona Ford and Tim Settle. Like I really had high hopes with those two signings, and they just did not pan out at all. So, and obviously Jordan Phillips, great pass rusher. Do not put him on the field for anything else. I think it's a good signing. Like, it's another one of those signings where we talked about it on our last episode, where we talked about how Brandon Beane wasn't going to the big stores. He was going to shop the clearance aisle at Walmart to find his players. And a guy that played on the Chargers last year that the Chargers didn't have any interest bringing back is a prime example of that. Everyone watched him put 63 points up on the board. So if you see something in him, you see a little shine on the shelf, absolutely bring him in. So good signing. I like depth.
Yeah,
depth is good.
Yep, and he's depth is good, especially for a group that I think outside of Ed and DaQuan was pretty much nothing. We literally had only one other player, which was Eli Anku. So they needed to bring somebody in, and he checks a lot of the boxes. So I like the move there. Next thing we'll talk about is Mike Edwards, who was signed to a 1 year, $2.8 million deal. He is a free safety, kind of a ball hawk, takeaway kind of guy. So yeah, he's a ball hawking free safety. He's got a nose for the ball. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champ. Obviously, was very instrumental actually in the Chiefs' run last year because Brian Cook wasn't their starter anymore. I think he went down with an injury, and he kind of just stepped in and played really well for them. So obviously, the Bills see some value there. It's a very cheap contract. I think it's $2.8 million. So I don't even think he's guaranteed to be the starter, but
I don't
you
think
know,
he will be.
you go back to Hyde and Poyer. These were guys that weren't viewed as upper echelon safeties. I feel like Edwards kind of fits that bill as well. I trust their eye. I trust what they think is a good safety because they've just been so good at really finding good talent in the secondary. So I believe their process. I trust what they're doing. And I don't know if you guys pay attention, but Cover One does a great job at looking at some of these guys. They really focused in on him, and he I think he's a really solid player. But is he a starter? Time will tell. I think the draft it allows him to be flexible in the draft, and we'll see after April what they're doing with him. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I honestly, I completely agree with you. I just think, it was a potential diamond in the rough signing, but don't be surprised if, he's just a depth piece that can play as needed and bring quality snaps. At the end of the day, that's really what you need. If someone gets hurt, you need a guy that could step in and pick up where he left off, and I think he's a perfect player for that.
Yeah.
I was thinking about why a guy in the Chiefs I hadn't heard of, because at this point I feel like as Bills fans that we're fairly comfortable with knowing who's playing for the Chiefs. I feel like Chiefs fans, Ben, you have more interaction than I do. The Chiefs fans seemingly have a little more knowledge of who's on the Bills. Like it's a two-way rivalry. I was like, why haven't I heard of Mike Edwards? And he's depth safety. And the biggest thing with this signing is that this is like a side tangent here, is that Brandon Beane, based off his time here, does not go in the drafts with needs other than the 1 year he went in saying, I'm going to pick a quarterback. That's the long time we've gone into a draft saying, well, we need something. Like a lot of the signings he does, he might get like a big, like a big ticket item, and then a lot of it is just, hey, if I don't like the player that's at that spot, or I can't get to a spot to get a player, no problem. I already have somebody on my roster. You're not scrambling to take somebody. You got somebody.
Yeah, he
there.
likes to be flexible.
Yeah, that's really what Mike Edwards does, because I think you're going to end up seeing one of Taylor Rapp or Mike Edwards start this year. I don't know how comfortable I am with that. At the same time, I mean, Sean McDermott's talked about, when you look at two high safeties, are corduroys in? Are they out as he's wearing a corduroy jacket? But yeah, I think really when you look at the end of the day, the ball hawking safety, and you have a downhill safety and Rapp, you pretty much have pretty much just hit reset on what you thought you had with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. Is it going to work out like Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer? I don't know. We will see. But as of now, it's like you guys said. It's a nice signing to have. He's been on Super Bowl winning teams, which shows he's been on good teams. But he started 9 of those games.
Maybe it leaves the door open for Micah Hyde to come back if he wants to.
I will
would say
this.
that Micah Hyde. I also I'd piggyback on Mike's idea there. I don't be surprised if started training camp, maybe halfway through training camp rolls around, Micah Hyde comes back.
Right.
Maybe not as a starter.
I don't think he wants to go through a full training camp. I really don't.
Really, with the Bills, he wouldn't have to. He could come in and he could be your dime package, safety.
Yep.
I will say this, I do think they're not out on Julian Blackmon either. They did have him in for a visit. He is a much more premium free agent safety than Mike Edwards, strong safety, guy who played in the box. He has played free safety in the past, but he's much better at strong safety. keep an eye on him because he might be someone they try to bring in. They prioritize having at least 3 guys capable of starting, guys that can step in right away and start. I wouldn't be shocked if you see like Rapp and then, like you said, Hyde towards the end of the training camp. Or somebody's going to get brought in if they don't end up getting a safety they want in the draft. Guarantee it. Whether it's in training camp, preseason, whatever, they're going to bring in a body, a veteran body, capable of starting if they don't land a safety they want. And that is just, I love how Brandon Beane attacks the draft because he waits out the market. He finds value in players that stay out on the market for longer because, they were either in over their heads, teams don't, necessarily see them as a fit with their team, whatever. Just Brandon Beane's really calculated when it comes to that stuff. So I just, that was just a little bit of a side tangent there, but just keep an eye on a couple of those guys. So we will talk about this player, I guess. Happened actually before free agency started technically, and it was Mitchell Trubisky, which I did kind of predict happening. With the familiarity, it made a ton of sense to bring him back. 2-year deal he signed. His cap hit is $2 million. Whatever. I'm not, like, I think we've talked about this a billion times. We're not too invested in the backup quarterback position. If he can play a game, if we ever need to turn to a backup quarterback, we are screwed.
Yeah.
No matter what. So
yeah, the Chiefs don't sign. The Chiefs have their backup quarterback as Blaine Gabbert because he can guide the ship for a game or two. If Pat Mahomes goes down for a season-ending injury, then they know their ship is sunk. I mean, I think it's interesting. You look at the way teams attack backup quarterbacks when you have guys with really good durability like Allen and Mahomes. You see that their backups are guys who either guide the ship for a couple games, like Blaine Gabbert, Marcus Mariota down in Philadelphia for a little bit there, or just a guy who's hype man for the main quarterback like Trubisky kind of was for Josh Allen. And then you see guys like, I think the interesting thing with like the Bengals was that they keep bringing in young guys, and that might be a discussion that it might be a further down the line episode about other quarterbacks in the AFC. But you notice how the Bengals have tried to keep a young guy behind Burrow rather than an old aging vet that can guide the ship for a couple games. Because the Ravens did the same thing with Huntley for a while before he left for Cleveland, I believe.
Yeah, but Huntley sucked.
I mean, let's be real here, Mike.
You can do worse than Huntley. He's all right.
Yeah, like backup quarterbacks are backup quarterbacks for a reason. If they were good enough, they'd be starting.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley, might I add?
Oh, yeah.
When you go out after a season with Jake Browning being really good for like 4 games, Gardner Minshew taking a team to the playoffs, just having really great backup quarterback play, I feel like Huntley is just super subpar.
I mean,
but that's
really,
just
there because you don't have to change your offense from Lamar Jackson. That's really
that's pretty much
tax.
it. Yep.
You keep the same offense, which as you're saying, Ben.
Something super important on the list of priorities. So, whatever. Mitch Trubisky's your backup. He's a good vibes guy. So, whatever.
He tells Josh to wear sleeves.
Right.
I can't believe we haven't talked about this yet. Taron Johnson back for not really back. He was.
We'll get into it with extensions. I was kind of more focused on the.
I mean, I think we kind of got the big signings. Ty Johnson's back for another tryout season.
Yeah.
I jokingly said Mac Hollins. We can do a little speed rush here. Mac Hollins is here for 1 year, $2.6 million.
Which, funny enough, out of all the players you could have listed for the free agency targets,
you're forgetting the most important one.
Mike talked about Mac Hollins. Out of all the people you could have talked about, he brought up his name, and he ended up signing with the Bills. I'm like, I immediately thought of Mike when we signed him. Like, are you like a time traveler?
We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But you guys are forgetting the absolute most important signing of the offseason.
Is who I think it is?
William
Yes,
Clapp.
Will Clapp.
Oh, there we go.
Oh
Will
my
Clapp
god.
likely to be a Buffalo.
Absolute beauty.
Hey, he's a center,
Absolutely.
so there's your new
All
starting
things,
center.
all jokes aside, he's fine for depth. He can play center and guard. So
I mean, listen,
there's your Ryan Bates replacement,
yeah,
technically.
we traded away Ryan Bates and then we signed somebody to be Ryan Bates. So yeah, that's yeah. So Will Clapp is here to be depth.
He can be Ryan Bates, but Ryan Bates could never be Will Clapp.
That's
Drop the mic.
Oh,
I
this
was
is
gonna
bad.
say something about Nicholas Morrow signing. I don't even. The Bills signed Nicholas Morrow for a year, loose change on the couch. Same with Casey Toohill. Two guys that'll just be on the defense. They're there.
You'll see him in week 3 of the
I do like
preseason.
Casey
You will
too.
see
He
them.
had 5 sacks this year. High motor guy. He's like he'll compete with Kingsley Jonathan. That's what he's here to do.
Yeah, or really take Shaq Lawson's spot. You haven't re-signed Shaq Lawson.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Nicholas Morrow's here to be Tyrell Dotson. Tyrell Dotson went to a place that I think we were sniffing up the. We had the right trail. We had the wrong tree. So, but yeah, no more Tyrell Dotson. We have Nicholas Morrow now, who's here to be just depth. I mean, really, we covered a lot of the big ones. A lot of these signings are just depth, pure depth, which is fine. You know, I'd rather free agency because I mean, as much as we'd love this podcast would be a whole lot more interesting if we had an off season like the Steelers did or like the Jets always do.
Thank God we don't have to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Fuck. I don't care that we're having a boring conversation. I'll take. Well, not boring, but you know what I mean. I don't care that we're not signing Russell Wilson. You know what I mean? Like, I'll take that shit any day.
I'm sure you
Right.
can. You
I'd rather talk about Will Clapp all fucking day. All day.
I'm with Dion Dawkins. I am glad we didn't sign any Jets out of pure pettiness and spite.
I honestly think, on a side note, the Jets are going to overtake the Dolphins this year. I think.
More hot
I
takes.
really
Jets
think
are
they
gonna
will.
Suck.
Yeah, we got hot takes coming down the pipe here.
I think they are just going to lay the biggest egg.
Again?
I don't think Rodgers has it anymore. I think that last year in Green Bay, I mean, he was really slowing down. And then he's another year away from the game. I just think
Well, he's too busy doing.
it's literally Aaron Rodgers or bust for that team, and that is their biggest problem.
I would.
You know, like they're not doing anything. They're going for it all right now for a 41 or 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
That is just, I don't know.
I
think the Green Bay Packers made the smartest decision ever.
It turns out smoking crack does not make good decisions for your quarterbacking future. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
I will say I think they have had an overrated offseason. When you look at the signings they've made, Mike Williams, Tyron Smith, like these are very injury-prone guys. And you're banking, and older, and you're banking on those guys staying healthy at MetLife, no less, for 8-9 games a year. No.
Swamp fumes get to you.
It's not going to work. So,
I think if we're going to do a side tangent on the other AFC East teams, I think the biggest signing in the AFC East was Tyrod going to the Jets because I think that makes him a playoff team. You might, viewers, listeners at home, you might be thinking to yourself, now wait a minute, is this a hot take from Trent? No, it's not, because I think Tyrod Taylor is still a fine quarterback that is fine. Like he'll get you from point A to point B. He's better than most backups. I'd say he's the best backup in the league personally, just simply because every team. I mean, listen, maybe there's a better backup. I don't know, but in my heart. Trent's heart listings. Number one, Tyrod Taylor. Just simply because I watched some of the Giants games, and you could see that Tyrod was the best quarterback they had there, which not really saying a whole lot when your quarterbacks are Eli Manning's son and character from The Sopranos, but
right.
But no, like
I'm taking Tommy DeVito over Zach Wilson 10 out of 10 times.
I mean, if we're talking about anywhere else in the country, I don't know about that. We talk about those teams, yeah, 100%. They claim New Jersey right there and then. But no, Tyrod Taylor, when Aaron Rodgers inevitably gets hurt because he's too busy being RFK's vice president or something. I don't know what he's doing. But please don't cancel us. When he gets hurt again, because he's going to get hurt again, he's not lasting a full season. Tyrod I think he can take the Jets to the playoffs. I think he's a good enough quarterback to, let's be honest here. I don't think the Browns are going to be back. I don't think
Well, the Browns will still have a great defense. The Browns' bread and butter was that defense. It's just
we
I don't
gambling again that the Browns are going to keep having cardiac runs with their defense while they employ 5 quarterbacks that are all about the same.
It's the same concept with the Jets, though. They're literally the exact same team.
Yeah.
It's just the Browns have slightly better coaching.
The Browns division's also very, very tough. And
True.
It's a dogfight there.
I think if we're talking about teams that we think we're going to be competitive this year in the AFC, I think a royal sleeper that nobody's talking about right now is the Colts.
Ooh.
Because
I think though they made the playoffs.
No, they didn't, Mike.
They did not make the playoffs.
I thought they
did.
No, they didn't. They lost that game
God.
against Houston.
That's right. They just missed.
They won 9 games with a backup quarterback. Shane Steichen displayed some tremendous schematic. He was just in his bag all year with Gardner Minshew at his quarterback. He's going to have Anthony Richardson back, who I am very bullish on. If we ever do a fantasy podcast, I will scream his name to the rooftops. But that's besides the point. I think that team can be really, really dangerous. I think more dangerous potentially than the Texans. I will go that far. I think they are really, really talented. As long as he stays healthy, I could be more worried about them than the Texans.
If Richardson stops playing quarterback like it's an enduro derby, with his body, he could be good. It's just he's got to stop playing football. I mean, truly,
he could be great.
Yeah, we're looking at the generation that watched Josh Allen play football and said, "Yeah, that's how I want to play football." The problem is these guys are not built like Josh Allen. Don't have Josh Allen's luck and not getting hurt.
I mean, he's built like Josh Allen.
He's built like Josh Allen, but
is.
he's getting himself in bad situations. Which, I mean, you could also cite being a rookie and, he probably didn't learn. Well, I'm not going to give that excuse because Josh Allen played in Wyoming with less coaches. But, Colts could be a good team. But,
we'll see.
Yeah, so.
I guess we'll move on to this new part I wanted to discuss.
We got a new segment, folks.
Free agency. Free agency technically isn't over, so there's a few names still out there that I do find interesting. We'll kind of go over a couple guys that we both like, and it doesn't have to be anybody. It doesn't have to be a superstar, but there's names out there that the Bills could still add, and then going into the draft, they can be very comfortable with what they're doing. I do think the Bills add another running back just because Ty Johnson and James Cook, and then they really don't have anybody else at that position. So I envision them getting more of a power guy, a goal line kind of guy. Name out there, a couple names: J.K. Dobbins, Zeke Elliott. Those names pop out to me. Safety, obviously, you want to look at there because we both kind of talked about how we're not too comfortable with what we got going on back there. Julian Blackmon, obviously, you still got Justin Simmons out there. I still think he's a very good player. Is there anybody else that you guys that's out there still that you guys want to talk about?
Trent,
yeah. Me personally, I do not want the Bills to sign a running back. Maybe it's the ghosts of Christmas past talking here. Maybe it's, I don't know what, but I feel like you could just draft a running back in the 5th round to do what any of those guys do, personally. Because college running backs are a dime a dozen. You pick one up. Odds are he's going to be good at least for like 2 or 3 years. As far as guys picking up in free agency, Yeah, I'm with you. I would like another safety because just out of I don't feel great about what the Bills have. I think
If I had to ask you, how on a scale 1 to 10, how happy would you be if the Bills signed Justin Simmons?
I think it'd be I think
7.
it'd be like an 8 because he's your starter. Um, and yeah, he'd be your starter this year, so it'd be a good signing for sure. I just like to see the contract first. But I mean, I
Yeah,
know that the Bills wouldn't do something. At this point in free agency, wouldn't be something devastatingly dumb. It would be smart and calculated, which
right.
benefit of having a good GM is that you don't have to worry about them overpaying the hell out of somebody. It's just calculated move. Um, Out of everyone that's left, because there's quite a few guys left.
There's a lot of guys
There are a
left.
lot of guys left. I'm just scrolling through the names here. There's some names here that I'm like, dang, I can't believe they're still free agents.
So, okay. What if they didn't draft a receiver and they brought in one of these two names?
Go ahead.
Hunter Renfrow or on a vet minimum, strongly throwing this out there, on a vet minimum, OBJ.
I'd be
No,
upset. I would if the Bills didn't pick a wide receiver and we got one of those two guys. I'd be mad.
I wouldn't be happy
I would
either.
call Ben. I'd go to his house. We'd record an emergency podcast at his house, and I would be venting for 30 minutes about the fact that we don't have wide receivers. I would be
think
that angry.
for starters, OBJ, I think his knee's shot. I think you saw this year he wasn't the player he was even in LA, which I think he was really good in LA, and I was excited about the prospect of us signing him. He just wasn't that player. There was maybe 3 receivers in Baltimore better than him this year.
Even on a vet minimum?
Yeah, even on
No, he's not gonna. The Dolphins have already offered him a contract, by the way.
Good for
that's
them.
not the vet minimum.
Go figure.
So yeah, they want him. They want him. Who else? Who was the other guy?
Hunter Renfrow.
Hunter Renfrow. I like Hunter Renfrow, but I think I think in his position going to the Bills wouldn't make a ton of sense just because I think he would be like the wide receiver 5 here. I don't think he would be really given. I feel like there's better opportunities for him elsewhere. And I also think he's more of just of a pure slot receiver, which is something that they necessarily don't like. I think they want guys that can play in the slot, but not guys that are forced to play in the slot. They want to be able to move guys around, like Curtis Samuel, where you can line up everywhere. Like a Stephon Diggs, you can line him up in the slot. Kincaid goes in the slot, whatever. They like to move guys around. He's not that kind of player. Just doesn't seem like a kind of Bills player for me that they want.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's just like to me, maybe 2 years ago, Hunter Renfrow would have excited me. Like I think I would want, but I did see some people say, it's a little foolish to bet on Khalil Shakir after we did the same exercise with Gabe Davis. I think difference is going to be though is that Khalil Shakir is not going to be your wide receiver number 2. He's going to be Cole Beasley, who
hopefully he's your wide receiver 4.
Yeah, I think he's your third.
Yeah, he's
your fourth option.
I think he's your third down. Josh needs a 5-yard slant receiver.
I think that'll be Curtis, to be honest.
Well,
I also think I will. I just
to be fair,
don't mean to cut you off.
I think that's how Mike got his calculation. So,
I think I love Khalil Shakir. I think he's a great player. I think a lot of the fan base is overrating him right now.
You're not
because of the run he had towards the end of the year. I thought he was great. But you got to remember, like, a lot of these teams don't have film on this guy. They're not too familiar with what he has off the table. Now he's got a full season arm. I don't think you should do it again with Gabe. He's our wide receiver too. I think he could still certainly have a very good role, a very prominent role in this offense. But I also think the team says he's not going to be our second guy. We just can't do that. We'll take a receiver in first or second round. But this is not going to be another situation where we forced a young receiver to play in a spot, he is just not really cut out to play in or has played in yet. And as a team that is a contender, a Super Bowl contender, do you really want to put your faith in a wide receiver that has not proven, at least for an entire season, that he can play as your second option behind Stephon Diggs? Is it really worth running that risk? Because that's another year of Josh Allen's prime where you take another risk of putting somebody young next to a Stephon Diggs like a Gabe Davis where it doesn't work out and he disappears for games. You can't run that risk again, and I think the team knows that.
It's entirely possible with him too.
I was about to say, I'm gonna shoot straight with you, Cowboy. The Bills are not leaving this draft with 0 wide receivers. They are coming out.
Oh no, not at all.
2, 3, as many as they feel like. I mean, we've made jokes and comments about, like we look at a wide receiver and you just point at him and go, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
I truly think the Bills are picking a wide receiver. If not first, early second. Like, you don't stock up on day 3 picks just to pick 11 draft picks. Like, you're stocking up so that you can move around the board to get a guy. I think you're probably leaving this draft with 2, 3 wide receivers. Khalil Shakir, I think, will fill in a role of guy who can run 3rd and 5 slant routes, which is what he did.
Right.
Like sharp, quick routes. A lot. Like I said, watching him, because the biggest thing was always he just couldn't get on the damn field. Like for the longest time, they just didn't play him, and through injuries and other players disappointing, he got a shot, and then it was like, oh, hey, he can ball out. We need to play him more. I don't think you're going to have to really worry, especially now that the NFL banned the hip drop. I think you'll see stronger guys like Shakir. You'll probably see more Dalton Kincaid. You'll see a lot more those guys in there, and that might also change what the Bills do at wide receiver. Maybe if you're looking at Troy Franklin, who can just burn you deep, maybe you're looking at a Leggett out of South Carolina, who's a bigger, stronger receiver that the corners might not be able to bring down easily. And on a side podcast note, before I let you say that, anyone look up an interview of Leggett? He sounds like a more
not what you think he sounds.
No, like. He sounds like if Leotis went to 5 English classes.
That's wild.
So I wanted to say this before we wrap up here. When we talk about the offense and adding receiver, which I think is inevitable, when they do add a receiver in whether the first or second round, I think, in my personal opinion, this is going to be the deepest offense we've ever had. I think so. And here's why. They have not had a running back like James Cook. He is a true playmaker, catch the ball. He's the best running back they've had in the Josh Allen era.
Okay.
Dalton Kincaid, best tight end they've had in the Josh Allen era, hands down.
All right.
Stephon Diggs might get a little worse, but I still think he's number 1 wide receiver still.
Until we see otherwise.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are digging too deep into the Stephon Diggs stuff. He's still a very good receiver. A lot of it was by design, why he wasn't getting the ball last year. And then you have Shakir, who I think as your 3rd or 4th receiver is very good in that role. Then you got a Curtis Samuel, who can be a monster separator for you. Then you add another receiver. That's really deep to me.
True.
And when you say something like, you think Samuel's going to get 1,000 yards, and let me ask you this: do you still think they're going to draft a receiver?
Yes, and I still stand by my point.
If they draft a receiver, he's likely going to get 700, 800 yards. So at the very least, makes that the deepest offense we've ever had. It's
True.
just, I think the only concern for me right now with this offense is how the interior of the line is going to fold, because Conor McGovern's never played a snap at center in the NFL. He's done it earlier in his career, and I trust their process, but that'll be an interesting thing to watch. But man, this offense could be really fun next year. Really fun.
I'm hoping they're fun.
Me too.
I think a side note,
I just want to
a little
win.
side note on that.
too.
I mean, we came a run first offense because the 8 plays that Ken Dorsey had in the playbook were probably the 8 best plays in there now are the run plays. I mean,
Yeah.
focus.
Wham.
I
Trap.
am utterly shocked that defenses didn't catch on as quick as my dad, who, for all intents and purposes, trained to be a defensive coordinator for a little while, could look at the TV and go, the Bills are running. And 9 times out of 10, the Bills are running because they just didn't have that many run plays. I'm excited to see, what's new. But I think we have a new segment rolling in here.
We asked some of our followers to submit some questions. We got a couple of them in here, so we'll go through them. We'll take turns answering. I guess we'll do like individual questions.
That works.
So one question is, we basically just talked about this, but I'll ask. I'll ask Trent. This guy Kenny asks, do you think that Shakir deserves to be a wide receiver 3?
Thanks for the question, Kenny. I would say of what we saw, yes, wide receiver 3, absolutely. Because when you're looking at your wide receiver 3, he is going to be your guy that runs the slot mainly, or is in there for possession downs, which I think is perfect for Shakir because as we saw, his route running's crisp, his hands are good. He just doesn't have that burner speed, but when you need, like, he's a lot, to me, he reminds me a lot of like a Stevie Johnson, Cole Beasley type, where it's your footwork sound, your route running's crisp. I mean, he beat Snead in the playoffs. He put himself in a spot where he could beat him. Like, that's not, we could say, oh, there's no film on him. Corners aren't looking at film of wide receivers like, who's number 10? I ain't heard number 10 when you're in divisional round. They got film. They got film.
Right.
And he still beat him. That's still 1-on-1. So at the end of the day, yeah, I think he's earned at least to take the starting position. He's earned to start. He's earned a chance to start. Put it that way.
Right. Yeah. This next question, I'll go to Mike. This comes from Caden. He asks, do you think the Bills will draft a wide receiver or a D tackle? With their first pick. With their first pick, I assume, is what he means.
If they draft a D tackle with their first pick, we riot. We absolutely riot. There has been enough years where they have spent drafting defensive linemen in their first 2 rounds. I am very ready for a receiver. It needs to be a receiver.
Yeah.
Regardless of what we talked, it needs to be a receiver. A receiver or a secondary piece. If they draft a defensive lineman, I don't even know anymore. I won't know how to trust the drafting direction of this team anymore.
I'm gonna just one question I wanted to just talk about. We don't even have to answer it. Some guy said, "Do you want Bills get Drew Tranquil? Can you send a contract to him?"
I don't think he's available.
Drew Tranquil resign with the Chiefs, and I just anybody wanting a linebacker and anybody that wants a linebacker of his caliber is just insane. After what we saw last year with Milano and Bernard, we arguably have the best linebacker duo in football right now. So I don't even want to discuss the idea of a linebacker unless it's our third special teams guy or something.
I think it was actually funny because one of the things I want to talk about with Taron Johnson is that Taron Johnson is essentially your left outside linebacker.
Yeah.
The Bills linebackers are Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard, and Taron Johnson. Those are your 3 linebackers.
Got Nick Morrow.
Oh my God!
Okay, stop. Just stop.
Just send your goofy ass outside.
Nick Morrow couldn't cover my parked car right now.
Oh, I'm sure you can cover your car.
Yeah.
Good run stopper. Can't cover for shit.
Hey, that sounds familiar. Where have I heard that one before?
This last question, I guess I'll answer. Comes from Liam. He says, "Who should the Bills draft with the 28th pick? Adonai Mitchell or Nate Wiggins if he falls to 28. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Nate Wiggins is a cornerback who plays for Clemson. I might break my TV if we draft a cornerback.
Oh, come on.
It's
better than a D tackle.
No,
You're gonna be
he's
mad
asking me,
when
would I take Adonai Mitchell or Nate Wiggins? I'm taking Adonai Mitchell.
Okay.
10 times out of 10.
All right.
Yeah.
Now
You're gonna be mad when the Bills
Adonai
draft
Mitchell-
Cooper DeJean.
Donnie Mitchell, he's fine. I'm not the biggest fan of him. There's other receivers I prefer. He's, any receiver really, I'm going to probably be sold on, whoever the Bills draft. But Adonai Mitchell or Nate Wiggins, you're asking me if the Bills want their wide receiver 2 or probably their cornerback
2.
I don't know, what, 2? Yeah.
You're asking, do you want a corner or do you want a receiver, basically?
Do I want a corner to compete with Christian Benford, or do I want a wide receiver? I'd rather have Mitchell. In that, if you're asking me between the two players, I think Wiggins is a better prospect, but I do think need plays a bigger role than most people think when it comes to drafting, especially for the teams that are later in the drafts and they have less need. So, yeah, I'd go with Mitchell there. Thanks for the questions, guys. We will be doing this probably for every episode now, just to involve anybody that checks out the podcast. So
we
want
do
to appreciate that
from you, the viewers at home.
We do, and we do want to start.
Yes, we do.
Going live, so we interact with you guys more. For anybody that does watch or listen.
You could hear all of our glorious voices and maybe even see our faces and glorious live.
Eventually, we're going to get to that point. We're just starting out here, so
we're brand new here. We're fresh on the.
It's a work in progress for sure.
We started a podcast.
And there's a lot of editing
to
be done on my end. Yeah, so we'll be seeing you guys. I don't know. We can do probably next week. We'll start getting in more draft stuff as we creep in closer. Mock draft season is pretty much in full swing right now. We'll discuss some of the ideas at picks 28 and in the second round and other things among that. So we appreciate everybody listening, and we'll see you next week.